Sabra Johnson, man, good to see you today. I'm talking to you today about brakes, man. I want you to build a safer car. I want you to build a better car. A lot of times I'm asked, what is a Restomod? Restomod, in my definition, is a car that you push to the envelope from the standpoint of speed. You don't have to, but that's one of the considerations. You're making this car faster. Another consideration is that you're making this car unique for the consumer's need, experience, so it has that custom comfort aspect to it. That's an important part of restomodding. But the other part that's just changes the game, and this is why restomodding is something I'm passionate about, man, it makes the car safer. That's what it's about, man. When you drive one of those older cars, or I said differently, there are sad stories of older car enthusiasts going to car shows, coming out of the parking lot, and they have an accident. Cars just don't stop. Cars are just not safe. And so we have technology in place now to make the car safer. All right, so that's what I'm going to talk to you today. I'm going to talk to you about safety in the context of stopping power. So, again, Sabra Johnson here at City Classic Cars. I want you as a builder to build a safer car. I want you as a consumer to really understand what you're getting yourself into, to really understand what the cost is all about. You know, a lot of times when you don't understand something, you don't understand what you're getting. You know, I went and, when I first bought some cows, to me a cow is a cow, baby. I mean, they all taste a cow, you know. At least that's what I thought. Prangus, Angus, Brahmas, you know, and too much talk, you know. And I don't know if I like the white ones or the black ones. And that's how I processed them. But then you understand, well, that's a Charlet, and this is a such and such, and that one costs X a pound, and that one is another price a pound. And, you know, so you get into that. And then once you understand what you're buying, it's totally different. Same thing with horses. It's totally different. Well, you got to understand what you're doing when it comes to brakes. So when you look at the chassis, a lot of times we talk about the chassis and what the chassis is going to do. These are antique cars. Same thing. All these principles I'm saying applies to all of these old cars right here. There's a group of exotic cars right now. Everything I'm going to say applies to those exotic cars. This is Maybach, this is Bentley, a couple of Rolls Royces. It's always the same talk. Well, how is the stopping power? So you look at these cars of different eras, their stopping power is different. That's a very antiquated, antique stopping system. This one here has been upgraded. It's got calipers on the front. So it's going to have more of a modern sensibility to its stopping power. And that Maybach and that Bentley and Rolls Royce and their year, make, and models, they feel they have the best of the best. So what do we seek to do? So what we seek to do with the Restomod, we try to take an old car like one of them over there, you know, maybe that 1928 Dodge Brothers, and we try to make it stop like that Maybach. That's kind of what we're doing. We want the car to look like that, and we want it to stop like that. So that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about the chassis. There are three things that safety components on there. One thing is dealing with your steering, your stopping, and your suspension. I want to just talk to you today really quick about the stopping. Let's go over brakes 101, what it's all about. I'm supposed to cover the caliper size, what type of caliper and all this. So I'm going to go over a couple of components that are going to be very, very important. In my opinion, one of the key things you can do is decide which caliper you're going to go with. That's a cheap upgrade, man. Change your calipers. If you change your caliper, it's going to change your stopping power. So what we have here is a 4-piston, Wheelwood 4-piston setup. It's 2 on each side, and your brake pads go in the middle, and that's going to give you a nice, controlled, firm stopping power there. And so that's the difference in this. So now when you start going with a OEM setup, and you got an OEM situation going on, you're going to have 1 or 2 pistons. That's for the most part. When you start getting over 2 pistons, you're getting into the aftermarket. When you start getting past 2 pistons, you're getting into some level of performance. And but in an OEM situation, especially so on these older cars, you know, like an old school GM caliber, it's going to be 1 or 2 pistons that's going to stop that. And so this is designed to be an upgrade when you start talking about a 4-piston. Now, I like Wheelwood. They don't send me nothing free. They ain't sent me no money, none of that. So I'm just telling you what I use. And so this is not a pitch or anything. I don't get nothing out of this, brother. It's just what I use. I'm just giving you my recipe and that type of thing. So, but I like the 4-piston setup for most situations. This is what we're going to put on. This is going to stop your car. And I had a conversation with a client, very caring client, was very concerned, and says, well, hey, I got this big car, and it's 6 piston. That's it. 6 piston enough to stop it. Well, I'll give you some background. So in the drag racing world, most runners, especially in the drug racing world, they're going to use manual brakes. They're going to use manual brakes, master cylinder, propulsion valve, all that. They don't need no brake boost. They're going to use manual brakes. And what ends up happening is, and they're going to use a smaller rotor. Their rotor may be 10, 11 inch or something like that. And they're normally going to use 4 piston wheel woods all the way around. Front and back, they're going to use 4 piston wheel woods. That's going to be stopping power. Now the average drug racer who can really get after it, when he's at his top speed or she's at their top speed, even if you ain't that good, you're going to be 130, 135, 140. If you're Tony Bynes or somebody like that, you're going to be 160, 175. You're going to be somewhere in there. You're going to be getting it. You're going to be smoking. And then you're going to shut that thing down. But this is all they're going to use. HMP doesn't have a sand pit. They got those cones there, and boy, you ain't careful. You'll be out there in the middle of the road somewhere. But most of those guys are running 4 piston. They're running 4 piston. So this is a upgrade consideration. It's ubiquitous, if you will, in the aftermarket world. But if you can have a 4 piston setup, upgrade, this is one of the greatest things you can do to upgrade your car. A lot of times when we're buying and selling cars, say for Bear Jackson, Mecum, or one of the auctions like that, and we have a budget. We have a budget of how we're going to upgrade this car. More times than not, we're going to change the caliper. If I can't change the full braking system, I'm going to at least change that caliper, because this is one of the most impactful components of your braking system that you can upgrade, and the price point is not outrageous. So that's that there. Now, this right here is a 6 piston. Now, the other thing I want you to know is pretty much go like that. That's front, that's back. In American stopping power or automotive stopping power, what we've learned is that most of the stopping should be done on the front. And so when you look at a modern car, about 20% of the stopping is on the rear. So no matter how much power you have, man, I mean, 1,500 horsepower. You don't need, the odds that you need much more than a 4 piston on the back. It's not very, very likely, because you're going to do most of your stopping right up here in the front. So now when you got a situation and you're pushing over 1,000 horsepower, I would even say maybe if you're pushing over 800, you got capacity for over 800, over 700 horses, you probably want to upgrade to a 6 piston. 6 piston is probably where you should go. Now, the difference in this price and in this price, it's going to be significant. So when you start getting all into pricing, well, why is that so much more? Because you got different capacity. That's why it costs more. But you don't want to be cheap when it comes to your safety. And unless you know how to build a car, you don't want to tell your car builder how to design it. You want to give them the power to create a safe application for you. So the caliper is going to be the most important. So we're doing a GTO. It's going to be about 1,300 horses. It's about 620, 630 at the muscle. Just raw power on the motor. You add the turbos. You're going to double that thing up. So it's going to be somewhere around 1,300, 1,250 or something like that. And not that he's going to use it all, but let's say he does, or she does, or the family does. Well, we want them to be able to stop, baby. The first consideration we want to make is, what is your, now I'm going to do this out of order. I'm doing it in what I think is important. So the first thing we want to consider is, what are we going to do with the calipers? The next thing that we're going to consider, since I'm here, I'll go over it, is the rotor. Now this is the rotor. It's a little heavy to me, so I'm not going to hold this long. So this is the rotor for the GTO setup. This is a big old boy. Now, here's the main thing you need. Okay, we want them slotted. We want them drilled. That's what we want. And so this setup here is going to be a performance setup. Now there's a hub. The hub has nothing to do with stopping power. This is just what you're making chew. It has nothing to do with stopping power. But this is important. What happens is this heat is dissipating. So the pad is heating, and that heat needs to dissipate. So all of this is designed for heat dissipation, for for that heat to go somewhere. Let's get it out of here. If you ever seen a track car and you've seen a camera with it, what happens is that car, those things are turning red. And so if you're on a slalom course and you're stopping, you're going, you're turning, you're hitting it, you're stopping, you're going, you're turning, you're hitting it, man, that thing's red, fire red, man, like a fire engine. So it becomes fire red. So you want some stopping power there. Now, so the application, that application is what we want on this GTO. Now, what can we do different? The only thing we can do is we can go with a carbon fiber rotor. But I'd like to know, what are you going to use the car for? Now, if this car was used for the track, and it was going to be a track car, I probably would change that to a carbon fiber. Not that that won't stop it, but it's like, it's all overkill right now. But when you mess with that kind of horsepower, I mean, this is the next level. So it's not that it's overkill for what we're doing, it's the right application. This would be borderline. This is probably not enough. You got twin turbos and all that. I don't want that. That's just not enough. But on the back, it's going to be fine. So now the thing is, when you go with the bigger rotor, now on the drag car, most of them are running 15 or 16 or 15 inch wheels. Now people are going back to drag radials, so they're running a 15 inch wheel. So that's the other reason they want to use a 4 piston, because when you go with a 6 piston, you're going to need a bigger rotor. You need a bigger rotor, you're going to need a bigger wheel and all that kind of situation. And most people on the drag side don't want that. But in everyday drive and everyday traffic, you're going to drive this car, you're going to cruise this car, you're going to get on the highway. That setup, if you're going with over 800 power, get you a 6 piston setup. It's a C6 Corvette style caliber there. And get you a big meaty rotor, and you should be fine on your stopping power. Now, but not only that, let's come on up. The next thing that separates the men from the boys, if you will. This is a different level. The next thing is, what you got as far as the brake boost and the master cylinder setup. Man, that's going to be so very important. And the way I do it as a builder, all applications are fine. Whatever you want, baby, I do it for you. It's no problem. But when you start getting into a certain level of horsepower, I won't build a car. If you don't allow me to put a level of safety in place that I'm comfortable with, that allows me to sleep at night, then I'm not going to build your car. No matter how much money you have. If you're a builder at home, you got to have that same standard. And let's say you say, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, if you have a stock engine, 350 engine, stock engine, even a stock LS engine, a real wood master cylinder and brake boost, and again, or something of that nature, it's going to be an adequate situation going on. If everything is stock, put the stock master cylinder and brake booster on. If everything is stock, everything is like it came from the factory, do a stock master cylinder, do a stock brake booster. That's going to stop it. Stock for stock is going to stop it. The GM or Ford or Chevy or BMW, Mercedes, they've already done the research on that. They've already determined that this setup, this engine, this braking system, this brake booster, all these things match. So you don't have to guess the recipe. Just go back with their recipe and everything's going to be fine. The problem comes is when you start bringing performance and a performance sensibility to the table. Once you start bringing a performance sensibility to the table, man, you're going to have some different moves. Because you're not building the car that the OEM built. You're building the car yourself. And so when you're building the car yourself, you're going to have to design a stopping power that works. So what I like to do, I like to upgrade if, let's say I have a moderate increase in power. A moderate increase in power. Another way to say that, let's say you got a mild cam. I got a mild cam in there, and let's say I'm upgrading the brakes from the, maybe it was you converting it from drums to discs or something like that. Then I'm going to want aftermarket brake boost and master cylinder setup. Wheelwood is a great option. There are other options out there. They're not the only game in town. Now, why do I like the Wheelwood versus the OEM? It's going to have a bigger bore. Bigger bore is going to make more pressure. And then in this game, I'll just be honest. One thing about Restomods is all about style. You know, I got on an Ariat shirt right now. I got on True Religion pants. I got on Nike shoes. You know, that's just what I got on right now. See, it all kind of complement itself. Well, that's what you do when you're building a car. I'm trying to build a wardrobe. I'm trying to put this thing together. You know, I got on my sport coat, I got on a certain tie, I got on certain shoes. I'm putting it together. I got a certain swag. And so also when you're building a car, all things have to match. You know, I like to say that good meat makes its own what? Good meat makes its own gravy. So in a moderate situation, a mild situation, I think the best thing to go with is an aftermarket upgrade in your brake boost and master cylinder. That's going to be very, very important to your stopping power. Now, it's almost more important than this here. The only reason I put this first as one of the key pieces to the puzzle is because this is for most people, this is an affordable, not a 6-piece, they're pretty expensive, but changing your calipers and upgrading your calipers, it's an inexpensive first step you can take if you don't have the budget to change the entire system. I would say change this, change your rotor setup. That's going to be a massive undertaking there. But after you do that, you got to consider the brake booster. And those for you don't know, the brake booster, you know, most cars it's going to be somewhere here, somewhere on this side of the car. Your brake pedal's going to push, the push rod's going to push out. It's going to activate the mechanical nature of the system. The system is going to start to flow. And so your brake booster is significant. It's going to be important. And you're either going to use a .4 or .3 fluid. If I get time, I'll tell you the difference in that while we use .4. But your brake booster and master cylinder is going to be significant. I don't order the parts, so I don't really know the prices right off. But let's say a master cylinder and brake booster setup, maybe $800, $900, $1,000, I don't know, somewhere in there. But it's not $5,000. It's not $200 either. Well, you can go get an OEM setup, all things being equal, for maybe $200-300. So you get an OEM setup for $200 or $300, then probably double that is going to be the price point of the of a wheelwood kind of setup, if you will, maybe double or triple that. All right, now that's going to be great for most situations. But the problem with the traditional master cylinder and brake booster, they work off vacuum. And so what ends up happening is this engine has a cam now. And what happens with that cam, the bigger the cam, loping of the cam, what ends up happening is that cam says, I want vacuum too. So what you have is two things that are saying, I want vacuum. What's up? Let's fight it out, partner. Me against you. The problem is the cam is right there with the engine. He part of the engine. So he's like, I'm closer to the power than you are. You way over there somewhere. I'm going to get it before you get it. So the cam is, the brake booster cannot take power from the cam. The cam's like, I'm right here, man. I'm going to eat. Now, when you get here, ain't no food going to be left. And so what happens with the brake booster is trying to get this power. This brake booster is trying to get this vacuum because the brake booster, the master cylinder setup, they cannot work without vacuum. It's the way they're designed in the traditional setup, and the OEMs figured it out. Hey, there's no problem. These engines naturally make vacuum. And so I'm going to use this as a power source, the engine itself, the vacuum in the engine as my power source that's going to generate power for this mechanical unit of the brake booster and master cylinder. Am I with you? I hope I'm not losing you and you know, all that. I believe in building a balanced car. So if you're a builder out there, I want to help you build a balanced car. I want you to build a safe car. You know, it used to be back in the day, you could tell who got muscles by going to prison. You know, what would happen is they have a big old chest, they have big old arms. People say they prison built. And they had them little skinny legs. They ain't got no legs. They swole up top, you know. That used to be the case because you couldn't build a balanced body in that kind of environment, is what it was said. Well, it's the same thing here. There's some cars that are built in that way. They top heavy on the engine. Oh, boy, you got an engine. Walk around like this. Engine. Room. But you can't stop it. You don't have any stopping power. So I want you to build a balanced car. I want you to build a safer car. I want you to be proud of your car. I want your clients to be proud of your car. If you're a consumer out there, listen to me and build a better car. Go in the pocketbook, spend the money, and do not be cheap on price. It can be a difference between your life and death. That's how serious stopping power and braking power is. So the master cylinder setup is one option to upgrade with vacuum. The problem is the engine wants vacuum. So years ago, let's say 10 years ago, the best option to overcome that, so when you start getting an engine that's making a lot of power, I mean radical. There's a guy around here, Zach, boy, he has a Corvette. I tell him all the time, boy, I tell you up. You know what I'm talking about? I tell you up now. And but it's radical. Boy, it's talking, you know, it's just a radical setup. So how is he stopping that? How is he going to stop that setup? So in a lot of cars, what we did, we came with the Hydro Boost. And so what a Hydro Boost setup is, same components, but what it did is it bypassed the need for vacuum. It's a really, really good setup. I think it's the second best option on the market. And it may be something you want to use. You're going to have a master cylinder and a brake booster, but it's going to use hydraulic versus the vacuum. And so what ends up happening is you're still using that same brake fluid that's going through your system. You're still going to use this, that's a dot free, but you're still going to use your brake fluid in your master cylinder. But the power generated that causes everything to function, your brake booster gives power to you inside the car to help you stop that car easily. So your pedal is going to be soft. That's what the brake booster does. Your master cylinder sends pressure. It sends a force through the lines, through the proportionate valve, to the actual calipers and says, this is how I want you to stop this car. So it sends a communication, it sends a message with force. And I get into the proportionate valve here just in a little bit. So what happened is all that's going to stay the same. But instead of the vacuum generating the activation point of the brake booster master cylinder, then you get into the Hydro Boost, which goes to the power steering pump, which is a hydraulic system. And what ends up happening is they share, in the hydro part of the boost, they share some things, but the actual braking components up going out from the master cylinder, they don't share anything. It still has that same brake fluid there. It still has that brake fluid there. So when you connect to the power steering, it generates power for your Hydro Boost, and you'll see a lot of high-end cars with a lot of power, maybe 1,000 horses. They'll have a Hydro Boost in there. And I think it's a great option. Now, what's the negative side of the Hydro Boost? Hey man, my grandmama told me, baby, when you can do better, do better. That's all it is. When you can do better, do better. And we can do better now in the aftermarket. What I get paid to do is they empower my clients with the latest and greatest. That's my job. I'm going to give you the latest and greatest options along with all the previous best options. And we're going to let your pocketbook decide which option you can handle. But one of my negatives on the Hydro Boost, as I go to the next one, is it puts so much pressure on the power steering pump. Now, the power steering pump doing two things now. It got to deal with the Hydro Boost, and now it has to deal with the rack and pinion. It's got to deal with the steering. That's too much going on. Why I got to do all of that? I mean, I was already doing enough, don't you think? Now you want me to service two components. And what happens is it just puts a lot of pressure there. And a lot of individuals who've had Hydro Boost, some individuals have never had any problems. So they'll be like, well, I've never had any problems on mine. A lot of individuals, you don't have problems there. Now, is the Hydro Boost better than the vacuum? Absolutely. It's going to give you a more rapid stopping power. It doesn't matter what speed you're going through. All right, stay with me. I hope I'm not losing you. Recap, I'm talking about brakes, man. I'm talking about calipers. I'm talking about rotors. Now I'm at the front of the car on the left side of the engine compartment, near the driver compartment. You push the brake down, the rod goes out, it activates the brake booster master cylinder setup. Master cylinder gets pressure from the vacuum of the engine, or it gets pressure from the hydro of the power steering. One of those is going to activate this. The master cylinder pushes out pressure, sends it down to the caliper. It's going to tell it, go, stop, man. So that's all we are. That's the whole class we're at now. All right, but what I'm saying is there's a difference in place. Because here's what happens. Let's go back to the vacuum. Maybe you're still with the vacuum setup. There's nothing wrong with the vacuum setup, but there's something better out there. So what happens with the vacuum setup, you know, a lot of times you think the faster you're going, watch this, the faster you're going, the more braking power you need. And it is true. The faster you're going, the more braking power that is absolutely true. But here's what I want you to understand. As the RPMs of the engine turns, the car is making greater vacuum. And so as the car is making greater vacuum, your pedal is going to be greater. But when a car is at idle, it's making less vacuum. So those who say, well, I don't need all that stopping power, I don't drive fast, and I don't need that. Well, switch your brain around. Just the way brakes work is you the one going to have the problem. Because you driving 20 miles per hour and 30 miles per hour, you don't have much vacuum. You know, because your engine is not making quite the vacuum, but you got this radical engine. So then you don't have stopping power. You at the in the neighborhood, about to run through the stop sign, hitting kids in the neighborhood. Why? Because you don't have any stopping power. Because your engine is least, or your master cylinder is least effective at low RPM, and it is most effective at a higher RPM. Now the only problem is if we swap it and still in vacuum, what's going to happen is you're going to have that one good pedal one time at 90 miles per hour. You're going to hit it, boy, you're going to hit it again. Oh, man, I ain't got no brakes. That's how it works because it's stealing. All right, so what's the next system in place? We're still talking about brake booster master cylinder. This unit I'm telling you about, I'm not here selling that. I'm not here selling you the electric brake booster setup. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to educate you. You want to spend your dollar as far and as wide and as great as you can spend it. What I'm really telling you is sometimes you have to cut back on your engine, even though you can afford more engine because you can't afford more brakes. See, it has to be balanced. It's really the class that I'm teaching today. So a lot of times I want the biggest engine I can get. I'll come back to the brakes later. No, you need to just calm down and get the greatest brakes you can get, and then see how much money you got left over for the engine. I think it's a different conversation, especially if you're over 50, 60 years of age. You need to think about brakes first, engine second. That's really how that game goes. All right, so the brake boosters that I like to use on my high-end builds, it's going to be used on the 1970 GTO. That's the twin turbo one, 441 engine. It's going to be about 1,300 horsepower. It's going to be a fun car, fun ride, Art Marks, big boy chassis. Just some really, really good stuff going on. But the reality is, I am not going to share my braking with nobody. I'm not going to share my braking with the power steering pump. And I'm definitely not going to share my braking with this engine. It's already maxed out at capacity. It can barely handle the cam, the situation that's going on. So what am I going to do? I'm going to isolate my braking unit. And I'm going to use electric. So it's a Tesla-inspired unit that we use. And that Tesla-inspired unit, it has some aftermarket interfacing to it, appearances to it, beautiful setup. It costs a lot more money, easily $3,500 or something like that. I don't know exactly, but a lot more money. But then it's a lot more time to put it in, you know. Traditional master cylinder, whatever the case may be, may take you 3-4 hours to get it in. This one may take you a day and a half to get it in. You got to do some fabrication, some cutting, and some welding, and all that kind of stuff. It's a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different thing. So that's going to be very, very important to your stopping power. Now let me keep going through the braking system. So no matter which one you choose, I'll go back to the electric one. If the electric one stops functioning, if the electric one stops, you say, well, what I'll do if the power goes out? Well, the power goes out, you have manual brakes now. That's what it feels like. It's going to feel like it's going to be hard to stop it. It's just going to be manual brakes, but it will stop. It's just, you got to stand on it like in a 1942 something or something like that. But it will stop. It's going to be a manual stopping power. But they're very reliable. It's going to be tied right into your electrical system. You shouldn't have any issues because you're going to need the electrical system and your battery and all that work to just start the car. So it all goes together. It's a really, really good product, really good unit. But the price is far substantial. And that's probably, a lot of what we do is good, better, and best. Good, better, and best. I don't really do entry-level stuff. I don't do entry level. It's either top shelf or I don't mess with it. And so it's good. Everything I do is going to be good. But this right here is going to be a little bit better. And this is the best. So I just gave you 3 brake master cylinder brake booster sets up. One is good. Let's go with the Wheelwood. It's really, really good. Many performance enthusiasts would say the Hydro Boost setup is probably going to be better. Wheelwood may sell one. I really don't use Hydro Boost that much. So, but a Hydro Boost setup is going to be better. And the third one is going to be electric. The electric is going to be the best. So you pick what your money can afford. You pick what your sensibility can afford. Then you're going to come on down. You're going to have the brake booster. The proportioning valve. What happens in that proportioning valve, let's say we use wheel wood a lot. You use 2 wheel woods if you're a builder at home. What I want you to do on the front, it's going to come preset. It's going to look like 1 unit, but it's going to be 2 units because it's going to have a front and a back. The front is already preset by wheel wood, and there's really no adjustment on that. The back, we adjust it all the way down so it's soft. We almost have no brakes on the back. Because if you put too much stopping power on the back, they're going to lock up. So we cut it all the way down. And then we test. And then we cut it up. Then we test some more. We turn it up. We test and we kind of get it right where that's too far. Cut it back down. And we get the stopping power right where we want it. We like about 20%, probably 18 to 22% on the back. If you're in a drag car, it's probably 14, 16% in the back or something like that. Maybe even 12 or 16% in the back. You just ain't going to have that much. You're going to have less in a drag car on the back than you would on a street car. But still, about 80% or more is going to be done on the front. Some people want 90%, some people want 85%. But it's going to be something like that on the front of the car. Front car is going to do all of the stopping power. If you're at home, you changed your brakes before, you know that's how you change it. So that proportioning valve is going to be important. So a lot of untrained, uneducated eyes, you look at it wrong. So there's a proportioning valve that's set up for all drum brakes all the way around. There's a proportioning valve that's set up for disc in the front, drum in the back. There's another proportioning valve that you can buy that's set up for drum all the way around, disc all the way around. And there's another proportioning valve that has multiple adjustments on it. Some on the front, some on the back. So you just got to decide which proportioning valve you want. That's pretty much brakes 101. The only thing left to do is the brake lines. We like, in the performance world, we like AM fittings, and so we like braided lines and things of that nature. We're normally going to come down the left side of the car. We're going to come down the driver's side of the car. That's kind of normally what we're going to do in our situation. Why do we like them, and why do they like them in the drag strip? Pop, 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 pop. Throw that one away, put the other one on. Pop, 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 pop. It's over with. Can you imagine putting the other line? You got flared, you got to be gentle. Please come on. Please come on. Hey, anyway, man, that's great. That's all I know about your game. I hope I helped you.